Welcome to Seacoast Real Estate Academy. Today in our License Law and Rules series, we will start discussing agency agreements. All agency agreements for brokerage services in both sales and lease transactions are to be in writing and signed by the parties. Rule A.0104a requires agency agreements with property owners, both sellers and lessors, of any type of property to be in writing prior to the broker providing any services. Allows an express oral buyer-tenant agency agreement from the outset of the relationship, but the agreement must be reduced to writing no later than the time any party to the transaction makes an offer. This oral agreement needs to address all key aspects of the relationship, including agent compensation, authorization for dual agency, etc. Note: a buyer-tenant agency agreement must be in writing from the outset if it seeks to limit the buyer-tenant's right to work with other agents or binds the client to the agent for any definite time period. Further, every written agency agreement of any kind must also provide for its existence for a definite period of time and terminate without prior notice at the expiration of that period. Exception: an agency agreement between a broker and a landlord to procure tenants for the landlord's property may allow for automatic renewal, so long as the landlord may terminate with notice at the end of any contract or renewal period. Contain the Rule A.0104b, non-discrimination, fair housing provision. Namely, the broker shall conduct all brokerage activities in regard to this agreement without respect to the race, color, religion, sex, national origin, handicap, or familial status of any party or prospective party. This provision must be set forth in a clear and conspicuous manner, which shall distinguish it from the other provisions of the agency agreement. Include the license number of the individual licensee who signs the agreement. Although the rule allows oral buyer-tenant agency agreements until the point in time when any party is ready to make an offer, it nevertheless is highly advisable that agents have such agreements reduced to writing and signed by the buyer-tenant at the earliest possible time, in order to avoid misunderstanding and conflict between the buyer-tenant and agent. Recall also that the agent must obtain a written buyer-tenant agency agreement from the client not later than the time either party to the transaction extends an offer to the other. In practice, this means the buyer agent should reduce the agency agreement to writing first, then write up an offer in order to ensure that no offer is made to a seller without having the written agency agreement completed. If the buyer will not sign a written buyer agency agreement prior to making or receiving an offer, then the agent may not continue to work with the buyer as a buyer's agent. The agent may not begin at this point to work with the buyer as a seller's sub-agent unless the agent fully advises the buyer of the consequences of the agent switching from buyer's agent to seller's agent, including the fact that the agent would have to disclose to the seller any information, including confidential information about the buyer that might influence the seller's decision in the transaction, obtains the buyer's consent, and obtains the consent of the seller and listing firm, which is the seller's agent. The foregoing applies equally to brokers working with tenants as a tenant agent. If you like this video, feel free to share it with a friend. For more real estate education content, please subscribe to the channel. From all of us at Seacoast Real Estate Academy, thank you for watching.